Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to have a quick discussion on a missing persons case that I had seen on Disappeared a few years ago. And this particular case, I've always remembered it. It always resonated with me. And now and then I'll go and look for updates. And I saw that there recently has been an update on the case. So this is the case of Terrence Williams, a young African-American man that went missing from Naples, Florida back in 2004. He originally came from Tennessee. He had 4 beautiful children in Tennessee, but I think he had gotten behind on child support, so he moved to Florida around 2002 for better job opportunities and to put his life back on track. And I think because of the child support situation, his license ended up being suspended. His Tennessee driver's license ended up being suspended. So when he moved to Florida, he didn't have a license. His mother, who was already living in Florida at the time, and his roommate were the ones that primarily took him to wherever he needed to go. He had 2 jobs. He had a job working construction, and he also had a job working at Pizza Hut. So on this particular day, I think it was January the 14th of 2004, the night before, he had worked at Pizza Hut. His mother picked him up, dropped him off, and later on that night, he was invited to go to a party which was hosted by one of his Pizza Hut co-workers. When he came home, he asked his roommate if his roommate would go to the party with him. His roommate had declined. So Terrence had bought a car, a Cadillac, a white Cadillac or a cream-colored Cadillac, and even though he didn't have a license, and since his roommate didn't want to go to the party, he ended up driving his Cadillac to the party that day. So he leaves that night, he goes to the party, and the next day he never came home. So roommate, mom didn't hear from him. They started getting worried. They called the police. His mother wanted to make a missing persons report. The police department didn't want to do a report because they said he's a grown man, he's an adult, he can disappear if he wants to, he can be gone for however long he wants to, he has the right to do that. And so they refused to take a missing persons report. So when the mother informed the family back in Tennessee that he was missing, the family in Tennessee, they got right on it. They started calling the Collier County, which is a county I think in Naples, Florida. They started flooding the Collier County Police Department's phone lines, letting them know that, our loved one is missing, trying to get as much information as possible. And because the family was so persistent, they were able to find out that his Cadillac had been towed from a funeral home 12 o'clock the day after the party, 12 o'clock in the afternoon the day after the party. So they find out where it was towed to. The mother goes to the towing company. They show her the towing affidavit, and they see that it was towed. The tow was called by a deputy, Steve Calkins. So when they contacted Steve Calkins when he was contacted to find out, okay, you had this car towed and this person is presumably missing, the owner of the car that you had towed, what happened? At first, Deputy Calkins acted like he didn't remember. And then when the police department was sort of like insisting on finding out what happened, he then all of a sudden remembered, and he didn't make an incident report. So there was no record of the tow, there was no record of an arrest or anything because he didn't make an incident report. So his superiors told him that, well, you need to make an incident report of what happened that day. So he made an incident report, after the fact. Come to find out, according to Deputy Calkins, he said that he had noticed a white Cadillac that had broken down. And so on the side of the road or at the funeral home or somewhere, it was broken down. And when he approached the driver of the Cadillac, it was Terrence Williams, and Terrence Williams told him that his car was broken down and that he was late for work. And according to Deputy Calkins, Terrence Williams begged for a ride to work and told the deputy that he worked at a Circle K. Now, Deputy Calkins said at first he was just going to call him a cab, but because Terrence Williams seemed like a really nice guy, he decided to go ahead and drop him off at work at the Circle K that he thought he was working at. So when he dropped him off at the Circle K, Terrence Williams tells the deputy, according to the deputy, Mr. Williams tells him that his ID and his registration are in the glove compartment of the Cadillac, which was left at the funeral home. So Deputy Calkins drives back to the Cadillac at the funeral home According to the witnesses at the funeral home, from the time that he left with Mr. Williams in his patrol car and the time that he came back, it was anywhere between 15 minutes to an hour. So he returns back to the Cadillac. He looks through the glove compartment and doesn't see any ID or registration papers. So then he drives back to the Circle K. Mr. Williams is gone. He's not there anymore. And then when he drove back to the funeral home, that's when he went ahead and had the car towed. So the big mystery is people from the funeral home saw Deputy Calkins place Terrence Williams in his patrol car and drive off. That's a fact. They did see that. What happened to him afterward? Nobody knows. So Collier County Sheriff's Department gets the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to do an investigation on Deputy Calkins because his stories were not making any sense. He took an initial polygraph test with the Sheriff's Department, and supposedly he passed that first polygraph test. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement, when they got involved, they looked through his records, Deputy Calkins' records, and they realized that they see that there was a formal complaint made against him by another family, the family of Felipe Santos. So Felipe Santos, a few months before Terrence Williams went missing, one morning he was driving with his brothers to work and they got into a minor accident. The cop that shows up on the scene is Deputy Calkins. So from the accounts of the witnesses at the accident site, they said that Felipe Santos admitted to the deputy that he was the one driving the car when it got into the accident. And so because he didn't have a license and he didn't have insurance, he took him away. Now, you would think that he put him in his patrol car and drives off with Felipe Santos because this is an arrest. That's what it looks like. But when the family called the police department to find out what happened and was he arrested, what jail is he at, there was no record at all of an arrest or of any type of encounter that happened between Felipe Santos and Deputy Calkins. So the only way that they knew that Deputy Calkins was the last person to have seen Felipe Santos was because of what was said at the accident site, and because the family had requested some type of, either they filed a complaint, or I guess they filed a complaint to find out what happened, and come to find out, the last person to have been with Felipe Santos after leaving the accident site was Deputy Calkins. So in the investigation of Deputy Calkins with the Terrence Williams case, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, they concluded in August of 2004 that there was no evidence of any kind of criminal act against Deputy Steve Calkins, and so they ended their investigation. They did determine that there was some misconduct. He had lied because he took a second polygraph test, and that concluded that he was being deceptive when they asked him questions of what happened to Terrence Williams after he drove off with him, after the tow. So there was some inconsistencies in his answers when they pressed him on the inconsistencies of what was in his incident report, what he told the dispatcher, what he tells the investigators. Nothing was adding up. And so when they pressed him to find out, why isn't your story making sense, he quit cooperating with them. So when he quit cooperating with them, they closed their investigation because there was no evidence of foul play, but there was evidence of police impropriety, and he ended up losing his job. So he was terminated. He appealed the termination, but the termination stuck. He didn't get his job back. He lost the appeal. So then now, that was in 2004. Felipe Santos disappears in 2003, Terrence in 2004. Now we're in 2020. Nothing has happened. The family is not any closer, both families are not any closer to finding out what happened to their loved ones than they were on the day that they disappeared. There's been nothing. Now, in 2011, remains were found near where Felipe Santos was last seen. I don't know what the conclusion was of those remains. Initially, they believed that it was the remains of Felipe Santos. I think they conducted a DNA test. I didn't see what was the conclusion of that DNA test, but Terrence's mother said that if those are the remains of Felipe Santos, she believes that her son is somewhere nearby. Now, I also read that in 2018, the family of Terrence Williams filed a civil wrongful death lawsuit against Deputy Calkins, and that case is still pending. In fact, it has a court date coming up of November 2020. There is a trial set for November 2020. Hopefully, in the civil suit, we will get more answers of what happened to Terrence Williams and possibly Felipe Santos, and maybe what is found out in the civil suit can possibly lead to a criminal investigation again against Deputy Calkins. What's so frustrating about this case is that it seems obvious that Deputy Calkins had a lot to do with the disappearances of these two young men, but because of lack of evidence or cover-ups or I don't know what, these two families have never gotten any justice. The truth has never been revealed on what happened. Something happened. Now, when Deputy Calkins said that he dropped off Terrence Williams at the Circle K because, according to him, Mr. Williams told him he worked at the Circle K, you would think that there would have been some type of surveillance video of him and Mr. Williams at the Circle K, that there would have been witnesses who would have noticed a cop car showing up and, some guy coming out of it. But the witnesses said, the people who worked there said that they don't remember seeing a police officer or Terrence Williams at the Circle K that day. The surveillance videos did not show any evidence of Steve Calkins or Terrence Williams coming to Circle K that day. So obviously he's lying, and for whatever reason he's using the Circle K of where he dropped off these two men, and according to him something else happened to them after he dropped them off that he had nothing to do with their disappearance, which we know it's all baloney. So it's just frustrating when it seems like he has something to do with it, but there's just the evidence just isn't there to start any kind of criminal investigation against him. It's just frustrating, and this is the reason why I've always remembered this case, is because it was just so mysterious that a police officer takes these two men in his patrol car, and then these men just disappear off the face of the earth, just completely vanish. And he goes about his business, he goes about his life like nothing happened. Okay, he lost his job. I'm pretty sure he got another job after that. Probably went back into law enforcement. I don't know. I didn't dig too deep into what happened to him after 2004. But yeah, it's just something that I wanted to talk about, something that I wanted to mention, because it's just one of those cases that left me feeling just angry, very angry. It reminds me of the case of the man who, according to his wife, he went fishing one day and he never came back, and the wife and the best friend conclude that they said that he got eaten by alligators. So therefore, okay, he got eaten by alligators, case closed. The wife and the friend ended up getting married to each other. And it was like, it's obvious that the wife and the friend had something to do with this man disappearing. He wasn't eaten by alligators. And his mother fought so hard to get justice for her son. And everything ended up working out because the wife and the friend ended up being convicted of his murder. It was obvious. The wife, the friend, had something to do with this man disappearing. It had nothing to do with him getting eaten by alligators. They killed this man for his life insurance money and to be together. It was obvious, but for so many years, I don't know, it was at least 10 years or more that went by before anything happened. And I hope that, that the Terrence Williams and Felipe Santos case ends like that. That, okay, yes, a lot of time had gone by. Justice was left unserved for so many years. We're going almost 20 years now. But eventually, we'll get to the truth. We'll get to the bottom of it all. And that whoever is responsible for their deaths will be brought to justice, and that their deaths will be vindicated. That's all I can hope for. So I just wanted to talk about that real quick, and I'm going to be keeping track on what happens in November, and hopefully I can come back with better news for Terrence Williams and Felipe Santos. Thank you for joining me, and we'll talk again later. Thank you. Bye-bye.